It's midnight on Sunday, June 27th, 1999, and a woman named Linda Carter has just returned to her exotic animal farm after a long day out. Just outside Seattle, Washington, she lived with her father in an RV and bred animals on the property to sell their meat. While Linda would usually handle most of the chores herself, that day the responsibility had fallen on her father since she was away for the weekend. It wasn't supposed to be much work, apart from some routine check-ins and feeding the animals, but there was a catch. The farm had giant pigs and birds, as well as some camelids, and because it was breeding season for many of them, the animals, being animals, could be hostile toward unwanted intruders. Linda knew her 81-year-old father wouldn't be able to handle that if it happened, so she had explicitly told him not to enter any of the pens and to toss the food from outside the fences. Sadly, her father wasn't able to understand this properly. When Linda got back, she realized her father wasn't in the RV and decided to check on him. Not long after, she found him inside one of the pens, but not in the condition she would have wanted. He was lying cold, dead, with his neck literally mauled and crushed. As authorities would later reveal, the impact came from a killer weighing about 400 pounds, which had apparently stomped and kicked the old man to death. The first guess, as you'd expect, would have been one of the pigs, but as it would turn out, this was the work of a bird. Not just a bird, but an absolute tank of strange attributes stitched together. A bird that can weigh more than a full-grown panda and stand taller than the tallest of camels. A bird that wouldn't fly, but runs faster than many birds fly. A bird that uses its massive talons and brutal beast-like feet to kill more humans every year than any other bird on the planet. And above all, a bird that carries insane, almost unhinged instincts capable of tearing apart even apex predators like lions and cheetahs. Meet the lethal bird all predators avoid, the common ostrich. Struthiocamelus, simply known as the ostrich or common ostrich, is the largest living bird and only one of two known species of ostrich on the planet. Native to certain regions of Africa, it dominates some of the harshest conditions faced by any organism, including scorching dry deserts and open predator-filled savannas, where speed, size, and sheer endurance decide who lives and who dies. First described in the 18th century, its scientific name comes from the ancient Greek term strathocamelos, which translates to camel-like sparrow. By book, this reference comes from their shared, dry, desert-like habitats. But strangely enough, that isn't the only resemblance these birds share with camels. Their size, too, rivals and sometimes even surpasses that of camels. A full-grown male, called a cock or rooster, can reach heights of more than 9 feet and weigh anywhere from 220 to 350 pounds, occasionally reaching over 400 pounds. Females, or hens, on the other hand, are smaller, up to 6.3 feet and 200 to 260 pounds. This immense weight is part of why these colossal birds cannot take flight. Another reason is the structure of their wings and flight muscles. Ostriches lack the keel bone in their chest, which is the same structure that serves as the anchor point for the flight muscles in flying birds. That's why not only can their flight muscles not attach to the bone, but the muscles themselves are also severely underdeveloped, having wasted away over countless generations of never being used. Besides that, in any flight-capable bird, the wing feathers are interlocked through smooth, fine endings that act like hooks, creating a rigid surface to hold air pressure and let the bird glide above the wind. In ostriches, these feathers are scruffy and loose, giving a soft, plush appearance, but failing to lock together and hold the bird in the air, especially with that weight. So, instead of flight, these shaggy, cushion-like wings function as insulators. In freezing desert nights, ostriches cover their bare legs and necks with their massive 6 to 7 feet wide wings while pressing their fluffy plumage close to shield against the chill. Meanwhile, during scorching, dry days, they stretch these wings like umbrellas to block the sun, while letting their feathers loosen so air can pass through, cooling their bodies efficiently. Temperature control, however, is not the only use of these enormous appendages. The wings also play a role in one of the greatest evolutionary adaptations these giant birds have developed to overcome their flightlessness, and that is the ability to run at flying speeds. About 34% of an adult ostrich's body and muscular mass is concentrated in its legs, made of dense, powerful muscle fibers and unusually long tendons running the full length. Ostriches can spring forward with bent legs like pogo sticks, covering anywhere from 10 to 17 feet in a single stride. The lowest part of these legs is armored in scales, and combined with the didactyl feet, the two-toed stance resembles giant hooves that provide a rock-solid base while running. At their peak, being the fastest bipedal animal on Earth, ostriches can hit top speeds of 50 miles per hour and sustain 31 miles per hour for extended periods, which is a feat even many big cats cannot match. While doing so, the giant bird also keeps its head and body in near-perfect straight line. Experts say that if you watched footage of an ostrich running with its legs cropped out, you might never guess the animal is moving at all, thanks to spring-like steps that generate almost no upper body motion. To maintain this insane balance, the enormous bird uses its feathers like rudders, steering sharp turns, brakes, and zigzags without toppling over. During these intense running episodes, their massive lungs act like bellows, keeping air flowing continuously in one direction, while an intricate network of blood vessels ensures rapid oxygen delivery to every cell, allowing these beasts to push hard without tiring. Interestingly, despite all these traits that present them as apex predators, ostriches feed primarily on water-rich plant materials like seeds, fruits, and grasses. They occasionally supplement with insects or rodents and sometimes even snakes, but none of these require chasing down with their explosive speed or stamina. However, that does not mean these abilities are meaningless. As mentioned earlier, ostriches live in one of the most cutthroat landscapes on the planet. From big cats like lions and cheetahs to wild dogs, hyenas, jackals, baboons, warthogs, and vultures, to deadly reptiles such as monitor lizards, and even giants like elephants, buffaloes, and giraffes that compete over food and space. These massive birds face threats and rivals at every turn. Yet, being the majestic and intelligent creatures they are, these gentle giants avoid direct conflict whenever possible, conserving their strength while ensuring both themselves and their opponents survive. With their specialized huge eyeballs, they can spot approaching threats in stunning detail from about 2.2 miles away. Once detected, they lie down, stretching their long necks and heads flat against the ground. In a deserted backdrop, with heat haze and sunlight blending everything together, this posture looks nothing more than a shroud of sand to any predator, giving them a near-perfect camouflage. This behavior, however, is also where one of the most well-known and long-standing beliefs about ostriches come from. People assume that ostriches bury their heads in the sand when faced with danger, thinking that if they cannot see the approaching threat, it cannot see them either. This is not just a myth. It is a complete misrepresentation of the unhinged, fearsome nature of these massive birds. According to experts, this mound-like hiding posture is actually one of the most successful and practically thought-out camouflage techniques adapted by any animal in open habitats, not some lousy act of wishful denial. Anyway, if a predator still tries to get closer, their next move is to flee. And when an ostrich flees, it's almost impossible for anything to catch up. The relentless African predators, however, do not simply give up. Over generations, several hunters, especially big cats, have developed dedicated ambush strategies to catch ostriches off guard. To counter that, ostriches stay alert on their own and often forage alongside other herd animals, such as zebras and buffaloes, to increase overall vigilance. In cases where a herd is under attack and the chicks or nests are in danger, adult ostriches are known to pretend to be injured to distract the predator. An approaching predator sees a giant ostrich limping and assumes an easy meal, abandoning the pursuit of eggs or chicks, while the adult escapes after diverting attention from the vulnerable members of the herd. These defensive and fleeing tactics make ostriches extremely difficult to prey on, with several big cats observed avoiding them entirely. But that is not the whole story. If pushed too far into a corner, the other side of this seemingly deterrent personality emerges, which is a counterattack just as brutal and formidable as any predator could imagine. This ranch somewhere in Texas had an intruder in the middle of the night. A ferocious coyote tried to sneak in from under one of the fences, and if it had, there would have been a massacre of livestock. But it didn't, because of two massive ostriches named Carl and Tat, who apparently stopped it. And not just stopped it, they kicked the predator to death, decapitating its head completely. According to the owner, the birds might have carried the severed head around their pen like a trophy after the kill, because the head was found some distance away from the body. Their giant, spring-loaded legs didn't just help them run at blistering speeds. They delivered one of the most deadly impact forces in the animal kingdom. A standard blow from an ostrich can generate more than 500 pounds of force, almost like being hit by a sledgehammer swinging with terrifying precision. And on top of that is the sharp, curved claw that can literally disembowel any predator. With these bone-shattering, slashing kicks, along with brutal charges and rams, ostriches are known to have killed full-sized lions, cheetahs, and hyenas. This clan of hyenas has been eyeing a newly hatched group of ostrich chicks for a while, and has now crept dangerously close. The parents know their intentions. The hen crouched low, spreading herself over the chicks and some of the eggs like a living shield, while the rooster, with his neck and legs flushed with rage, braced to strike. Seeing the giant, furious bird advance, most of the clan backed off. But one relentless member, Zalika, stood her ground. To that, the enormous bird charged brutally, almost running the hyena down if she hadn't ducked at the last second. Even then, the massive bird delivered a lesson the predator would never forget. With this level of raw, territorial aggression, it's easy to imagine how such a creature would react to humans who happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, quite frequently in the wild. According to several behavioral studies, ostriches consider humans as potential predators when approached too closely, especially during the breeding season. A prime example of this reaction is the case we discussed earlier in this video. As the final report came out, experts revealed that the 400-pound bird named King Tut was guarding his nest when the old man may have wandered in to feed him. When the investigation concluded, the man's daughter, Linda, refused to kill the bird that took her father's life, stating that the animal was only being itself, defending its territory, and it was his father who had unfortunately wandered where he shouldn't have. Another famously documented ostrich attack occurred in 1981 on the American singer and songwriter Johnny Cash. Johnny was taking a walk on his own farm in Tennessee when one of his ostriches, named Waldo, attacked him brutally, breaking his ribs and opening a deep gash in his abdomen, nearly costing him his life. According to a report from the National Institutes of Health, at least 2 to 3 people are killed every year by ostrich attacks in South Africa alone, making them statistically the deadliest bird alive. And it's not just fatalities. Numerous incidents of ostriches chasing people, ramming cars, trampling cyclists, and attacking anyone who encroaches on their space keep surfacing, showing the raw, unrelenting aggression of these colossal birds, especially against humans. Despite all of that, common ostriches are still farmed and bred worldwide for their meat, eggs, feathers, and skin, which are being used in leather and clothing industries. This was an even bigger issue back in the 18th century, when these majestic birds were hunted to the brink of extinction. And even though significant conservation efforts have been made, their numbers have remained critically low over the past 2 centuries, with some regional populations, and even entire subspecies, the Arabian ostrich, completely disappearing in 1966. But interestingly enough, these birds are still classified as least concern on the IUCN Red List of species. Part of the reason behind it is that they occupy a vast territorial range, meaning they are not confined to a small, fragile corner of the world, which is usually a major warning sign for a species on the edge of extinction. On top of that, in favorable conditions, an ostrich can live up to 70 years, sustaining its population over a remarkably long time. Even though they are extremely vulnerable as chicks, a newborn ostrich passes through this phase quickly and grows at an incredible pace of about 1 foot per month, reaching its maximum height in just 6 months. Its weight takes a while to catch up, though, until 3 to 4 years, which is also when it becomes sexually mature. Around this time, males compete and establish a territory, and the dominant one forms a harem of 2 to 7 hens by inviting them to mate. Every year, from March to just before September, the males inflate their necks, change their skin color, and perform elaborate dances to signal the females. Once a female agrees, the pair moves to a private mating area and drive away every intruder. Then their ritual begins with grazing together and continues until their movements align perfectly. They feed, pause, move, and react in perfect sync. And then, all of a sudden, the male starts flapping his massive wings violently, pecking the ground and spiraling his towering neck. The female responds by circling him with wings lowered and eventually drops to the ground, allowing the male to mount. As the extensive mating ritual ends, the female lays the largest eggs in the animal kingdom every other day, sometimes producing 40 to 100 eggs per season. But since the whole flock often shares one nest, a dominant male and female end up incubating an additional 15 to 20 eggs that are not their own. Both parents take turns, with dark-colored males incubating at night and sand-colored females during the day, keeping the massive, vulnerable eggs completely hidden for 30 to 45 days of gestation. Speaking of eggs, some farm workers back in the mid-90s complained about certain ostriches not laying during their breeding season. According to their accounts, they would watch male and female ostriches performing their mating dance, wings fluttering, necks swinging, assuming the birds were about to mate, and would leave them to their business. But when they'd come back after the supposed egg-laying period, there'd be no eggs. This happened over and over, until they figured out why. The ostriches weren't mating with each other at all. The whole dance was aimed at the humans. In simple and quite uncomfortable terms, the ostriches were getting aroused by farm workers instead of their own species, and when they'd leave, the cock and hen would go back to ignoring each other. Experts say this happened because the ostriches had spent so much time around humans that they started confusing them for their own social circle. You know, I just wonder what might have happened if the farmers had stayed around. Pretty disturbing thought. Well, I'm never visiting an ostrich again, and neither should you. Anyway, let me know what you think about this one. This unhinged bird. That's all I got. All right, I'll catch you in the next one. Hopefully.